Welcome back. You are here because you are excited about real estate and you want to learn more about how to analyze property and how you can use a different type of leverage, everything from FHA loans with as little as 3.5% down payment, down to conventional, down to cash investments, and how you could look at real estate and analyze real estate. If you don't know who I am, my name is Maxim Cruz. I am a real estate broker, and one of the special things that I have today is actually I got this new pin right here. This is the commercial real estate broker pin from the National Association of Realtors. So this blue one will be coming off because I am no longer focused on residential real estate. I've actually been focusing on commercial real estate, primarily investment real estate, for a few years now. So I'm excited to get this pin, and we are celebrating that. But the main reason that you are here is for you. It is for you to learn why and how you can do this and how all of this works. Some more exciting news that we have happening. I'm actually going to be bringing on my wife. Yes, my wife is going to be coming with me on one of these videos where we'll be actually discussing some taxes and some benefits of doing this. She is the tax expert. She does all of our tax planning as well as file our taxes. So again, I let her handle that area. You know, I mostly focus on locating the properties, analyzing these deals, working with buyers and sellers in their process of buying or selling these type of deals. So that is my primary focus on the real estate marketing brokerage side of things. She handles all of the numbers and figuring out how we pay the least amount of taxes that is legally possible. So first of all, let me start off with a disclosure. Because I am a licensed real estate broker, all the information that I'm going to give you here is for information purposes only. This is not investment advice. Again, I don't know what your scenario is, so I always encourage you to meet with your local professionals, accountants, attorneys, certified financial planners, investors, whatever you call them. You know, this is for information purposes only. And again, I don't want to get in trouble and lose my real estate license. That has nothing to do with this investment stuff, just for providing information. All right, so now that we got that out of the way, today is actually another special day because we are making this video specifically for my client, George, okay? And George is actually a general contractor that has been looking for a smaller property, something that is, 4 to 8 units, something that has value add. So what does value add mean? What that means is some opportunity where the property is either outdated or the maintenance is, not being kept up, or it's been through some sort of damage. Maybe it got hit by a tree or a car or some natural disaster or something like that. And you go in and you buy that property and you improve it. So you value add you increase the price of the unit by bringing in value to it by, renovating it or bringing in some upgrades or doing some other things. So this is actually a more in-depth. Now this video is going to be a little bit longer. I am going to try to keep it under 45 minutes, but I am going to point out a few things. And as you see, I have a piece of paper here that is blocking the potential future upside of this property. So if you stay till the end, you will discover what this is. And if you don't want to stay in the end, just fast forward and you'll see what it is. All right. So let's get right into it. Again, man, there's a lot of special things happening in this video. The other thing that I do want to mention is that this video is part of a video series that I'm doing for my friend Denzel Rodriguez and all of the Kingdom citizens. If you have no idea what I'm talking about, go and check out Denzel's channel with Velocity Banking, okay? I came across Denzel, and using Velocity Banking, he has actually helped us begin to pay off some of our debts much quicker than just conventional snowball method or other things. So especially in real estate, man, I'm telling you, the potential with Velocity Banking and what you can do and how much quicker you can grow your real estate portfolio just by shifting the way that you use, some credit lines and some other tools that are available to you. It is just amazing. So Denzel, thank you for that information, and all of our Kingdom citizens that are watching this. Let's get excited about cash flow and this value add opportunity. So typically, how do we do this? All right. The address of this property, it is right here, 179 Northwest 40th Court, Oakland Park, Florida, 33309. MLS number A like Apple 107-73748. Now, I will tell you, the real estate broker that is doing this, she is doing a great job marketing this real estate opportunity. So, she's doing a wonderful job doing that, and I appreciate all the information that she has shared with me so far. So, again, there's got to be a lot of things that I point out here that maybe you hear it for the first time. And again, if you want to comment, and I think through this video, I have to make like another 5 videos that specifically talk about some specific items that we're going to be looking at here. So I'm going to try to provide for you as much of my knowledge and as much of my experience here of everything that I've learned, not only coming into, buying a property for myself, which my wife and I did very, very early in 2011, using FHA loans, to then becoming a general contractor, having a construction company, and having experience with some different type of FHA loans, to being now an investor and also being a real estate broker and working with different investors and seeing what they look for and how they look for and how they look at different things. I'm bringing all of this in kind of this video here. So let's get right into it. First of all, this building right here is currently a 2-unit building. Now, again, we have some things that are going to show you here that are going to maybe have you think differently when you're looking at different opportunities. So the remarks or the description of this property is investor's dream, fully rented, income-producing property. Large duplex on its market today with over 3,600 square feet, 9 bedrooms, 4 bathrooms. Currently 2 extra large units. This property was previously converted to a 4-plex, so at one time it was a 4-unit building and can easily be reconfigured to a 3 or a 4-unit to increase income potential. That is a great description. So again, this real estate agent, she's doing a wonderful job doing that. Owner can rent all or live in 1 unit while expenses are covered by tenants. That's what we've been saying all along. Location, location, location. Just 7 minutes from Easterland Park and 14 minutes from beautiful Oakland Park Beach. Earl Liffley Park and England's Fishing Pier. Near schools, shopping, restaurants, easy access to I-95. Price to sell fast, lowest price per square foot for income-producing property in the area. Okay, so all of this stuff is great. This property was listed on November 18, 2019. It is currently priced, or the listing price is $525,000. Now again, by working with a real estate professional to represent you as the buyer, there is some information here that we only have access to that unless you know, you won't know it. So what is that information? This property was listed on November 18, 2019 for $559,000. Right now, the asking price is $525,000. So they have dropped the price $24,000, okay, in 55 days. So what is that telling me? That is telling me that the seller has some room for negotiations, okay, and they might be looking to, for whatever reason, getting rid of the property. Now, the other thing that we have access to here, which is very important that I'm going to cover here, is the tax assessment. Through the tax assessment and through some other public information, I was actually able to find that this property they bought multiple years ago. I think it was $163,000. So they have plenty of equity in the property. So there are some room for negotiations for you as the buyer to do that as well. Okay. Now, before I get into a lot of this depth stuff, let us just do our basic real estate analysis based on what we have right now, okay? And again, if you want a copy of the real estate analysis spreadsheet that I use, I actually created this spreadsheet specifically for you. I'm not saying these are the only items you should consider, but again, it's in Google Forms. You could download it, you could use it in Microsoft Excel, or you could use it in Google Forms. So you can access that in the description. There's links below. So right here, I labeled this number 1, and some of these numbers are just for my reference, so I know what I'm looking at and how I'm running through this thing. Okay, so number 1, at the current price point of $525,000, the rental income is $1,750 for one unit, $1,350 for the second unit. The total income is $37,200. The expenses that are disclosed here is actually only $7,939. What I did is I actually added $800 for water and sewer and another $600 for repair, since it's only 2 units, which brought those expenses to $9,339. Based on that, on a cash investment, my NOI, net operating income, which is our gross income minus our expenses, is $27,861. So our cap rate at the existing, what is being marketed for the, if you take that NOI, 27,861, divide that by your purchase price of $525, that gives us a cap rate of 5.31%. Now, we also look at leveraged cash on cash. And again, if you want to go to some of my previous videos where I break this stuff down, you can go and look at that. And I'm going to be breaking this down next on here on this analysis. The leverage cash on cash is 3.62%. Okay. So all of that being said, now we see what this is existing. Obviously, depending on your investment criteria, currently George is actually looking for something in the cap rate of 6% that he may be able to take to 8%. And then also the cash on cash return, his ideal scenario is something that's over 10%. And again, that's why he is looking for value add. Okay. So we did that. Now, all of this right here is hypothetical, and we are just going to go into it. So I'm going to be doing some teaching here, so be patient with me. I'm going to explain what all of this stuff means and what all this stuff is behind me that you can't see. But let's get into it. Number 2, as is right now, I actually have multiple comparables that I pulled up, and the most expensive comparable, because this is a 2-unit building, and we are looking into possibly converting it into 4 units, I looked up the comparable for 4 units. Now, this is a trouble area, and I'm going to explain to you why. Whenever you are buying what's considered, residential real estate, 4 units or less, so a single family property, a duplex, a 2-unit, a triplex, a 3-unit, or a fourplex, a 4-unit, you are looking at comparable sales. So it's typically anything that's in the market in the close vicinity that has close by, that has the same number of units, similar bathrooms and bedrooms, similar square footage, similar features. You are comparing that to other properties. Then once you get over 5 units, so 5 units, 50 units, 100 units, 1,000 units, typically you look at the income producing, and then based on the cap rate, you figure out what the market price is, and obviously that then is negotiable. But again, in this scenario, you are looking at other comparable units. Obviously, in the scenario where you have an office building or where you have other multifamily real estate, if you have an 8-unit building that just sold for, let's say, $1.6 million, and you are selling your 8-unit building for $3.2 million, there better be a substantial reason why your price is twice as high as that other 8-unit building that sold. So there's still a mix of comparable plus income, so it has to be looked at. But again, we're going to get into that in some future videos when we are analyzing some bigger deals. All right, so the other thing that I learned here in Florida, so I actually got my real estate license back in 2006 in Florida. I am a licensed real estate broker, and I'm also a licensed real estate broker in Massachusetts. And we have a referral basis with real estate agents actually all across the country. So no matter where you're at, if you are looking for a real estate agent to work with, I'd be more than happy to refer you to someone. I've been building my referral network for over 13 years now. So trust me, if you're in a remote location somewhere, I could probably find you a real estate broker that can represent you with everything that I know, that can represent you ethically and fairly within your vicinity. So I'd be more than happy to provide that at no cost to you. The thing that I learned in Florida in residential real estate is CMAs, which is considered comparative market analysis. Now, typically a CMA, when you do it, you're comparing the area. But let me show you something that I think is specific to Florida from my personal experience of what I've seen so far in residential real estate, and that is subdivisions. Now, the reason that this is important, and hopefully you can understand this graphic, let's say this is a main street right here, and right here I have another main street. And within this main street, I have all these streets that are coming off. Now, this is all within a very, very close, 1 to 2 blocks of each other. So I'm not talking like they're miles away. I'm talking in the same, 2 to 3 block radius. So what I found that is very unique to Florida is that you see this dashed line right here. This right here, this subdivision, let's call this subdivision B, the pricing here in this subdivision might be 1. So let's say a 4-unit in this subdivision sells for $400,000. Then you have this subdivision here in the middle, which we'll call subdivision A. This subdivision right here, for whatever reason, it's a different subdivision. These units right here, a 4-unit is selling for $300,000. And then you have subdivision C, which is this one on the outer perimeter. Maybe it has some cul-de-sacs, whatever. I know I'm talking different language. This might only apply to single family, not necessarily 4 units, because you won't see that. But be careful, because I have seen it here only in Florida. So it's a little strange. That took me some getting used to. This subdivision right here, a 4-unit, might be selling for $500,000. Now, the problem with this, remember, when you're comparing properties and you're comparing what's sold close by, if your property is located in this subdivision A, and this is the lowest pricing, some of the real estate brokers, they'll actually pull comparables and they'll say, well, this one is selling here, this one is selling at this price, so we are going to use the highest number from this subdivision and compare our property to that. Well, if you look within the subdivision that the property is in, the pricing might be much, much lower. Remember, $400,000, $450,000 to $500,000. So you need to understand that. So that's why the value of the real estate broker is super important, because they can tell you this. Is it in the same subdivision? I've learned to ask that question when looking at that, okay? So that checks off number 2. So this $525,000 price, I found a property that is in the same subdivision that sold in May 15th of 2019, okay? Just a few months ago. It's a 4-unit property selling for $433,333. So what that means is that right now this seller is trying to sell a potential 4-unit building that requires things to be done to it to convert it into a 4-unit building. They are selling it for $525,000, while there's a recent comparable from May 15, 2019, so only 6 months prior, at $433,000. So now you have to ask yourself 2 things. What is so much better from this property that is priced almost $100,000 more than this other property? Or has the market really gone up $100,000 in the last 6 months? Okay, and in this scenario, I would say that it hasn't. So looking apples to apples, comparing this 4-unit to this potential 4-unit at this $525,000 price point, right now it's hard for me to, or it's hard for an investor, if I was looking at this for myself, to say, yes, it makes sense, let's go ahead and do it, okay? So now let's get into the fun part, which is gonna apply to George, and it might actually help you when you are considering some of these things, okay? So in this scenario, and again, this is just a scenario, it is a potential thing, I'm going to put in an offer for $450,000, because again, we are saying, hey, look, seller, I understand that you would like to sell for, $525,000, but a recent sold 4-unit actually sold for $433,000. Plus, I need to do work in this unit in order to convert it to a 4-unit building. So that $525,000 asking price that you're asking, look, there's It's just, I can't pay that, and I don't know what other investor would be willing to pay that price. So that being said, we are going to offer $450,000 for it because we have all of these expenses. Now again, as a warning, I did go to school and I do have my Bachelor's of Science degree in architectural engineering, so I understand how buildings are built. I also used to own and operate a construction company, okay, where we did residential construction as well as some commercial construction. So my experience is hands-on. Nevertheless, there are some cautions that I'm going to go over here as I go over here. So even if you don't have a construction company, at least you know what to look for and how you can look at some of these things. Okay. Number one, the first thing, okay, the first thing that you need to make sure, and trust me, you want to make sure of this, is it even possible for this to be a legal 4-unit building, a legal fourplex with a city? So you have to go to the city and find out if it's even possible. Now, because it is being currently used as a 2-unit and you're going to convert it to a 4-unit, the city will most likely require you to go through a zoning board of appeals. It will most likely require you, it's actually listed as a 2-unit on public records. So in order for you to change that and list it as a 4-unit, you have to go through the city zoning, the building department, the electrical department, all of that stuff. So all of that paperwork, I have a rough estimate that it's going to cost you about $10,000. Now, make sure, this is where we're getting into the contractual part. If you were going to propose an offer for $450,000, again, our attorneys or your attorney will draft this appropriately. It will say, hey, seller, I am willing to pay you $450,000 and I'm willing to pay for the expense of the zoning and all of the city requirements to convert this to a 4-unit, but I'm only willing to reimburse you those expenses if that's done prior to closing. So in the contract, you'll have a contingency that will read something along the lines of, seller to provide zoning city certificate certifying that this is a legal 4-unit building, and the buyer will reimburse that seller, at time of closing, or buyer will reimburse those expenditures to the seller, independent, whatever the scenario might be. So that's up to the lawyers to figure out and let them do their job, okay? So that's a placeholder that we have of $10,000. In the scenario where the listing agent is saying that it was previously used as a 4-unit, it might be easier. But again, from my experience, I'm putting that number as a placeholder, okay? Then 3B, you're going to have to put in some kitchens. Right now, there's 2 existing kitchens, and you're going to have to add in 2 more kitchens. The listing agent has actually disclosed to me that the seller is telling her that the rough-ins from the previous 4-unit kitchens are there, which means the plumbing is there. Some of the electrical might be there. It might have to be redone, but the rough-ins at least are there, which are kind of more the expensive part, because the pipes that do the sewer are all underground. So if it's concrete, you got to break all that stuff up. It's going to get expensive. Same thing with the water supply lines. Those water supply lines are already in the wall. So you're saving some money on plumbing, not only from the water supply, but also from the sewage. So again, considering that that's there, we're going to say, okay, the 2 kitchens are going to be basic kitchens. It's going to be roughly $7,500 per kitchen. So for 2 kitchens, it's $15,000. Okay, so that number is all set. 3B, okay, construction costs. Let me go through some of this thing before I get into all the construction costs. The other thing that we considering is, if you truly want to use this as a 4-unit, you want your tenants to pay their own individual utilities. So guess what we need to do? We need to call FPL, Florida Power and Light, because there's only currently 2 meters at that property. So we need to request FPL to install additional meters. Now, typically from my experience, the way that this is done is FPL will actually come and FPL will actually come and install those meters, but you need to have your electrician provide the meter box, provide the wiring with the rough wiring for FPL to connect, and then FPL will go ahead and tie in the rough wiring at the top. I'm not sure what, I don't recall what that connection is called, and then they'll go ahead and install the meter. So for this scenario, I am saying, hey, we're going to need an electrician involved. There's also some city things involved. Worst case scenario, again, this is just a rough number, it's $7,500, okay? Then we're going to have to put in 2 electrical panels, because again, right now there's 2 panels, which the listing agent has verified and told me there's only 2 panels. So we're going to need to have 2 separate electrical panels for those 2 other units. That's about $3,500 installed. The electrical wiring. Now again, because those units right now, there's only 2 electrical panels, meaning those wires are running from those 2 units individually. Now we're going to need to take some of those wires and actually run them into new panels. We might have to install some new wiring, some new switches, some new outlets, all of this stuff. So I'm saying, hey, all of this rewiring is going to cost us about $7,000. And again, I know I'm being high on some of these numbers, but I'm going to show you how you could do this. The wall partitions, remember right now it's only 2 units. So actually the real estate broker, and that's what I'm saying, she's doing an excellent job. She actually provided this little page here. And then what she's done is she separated these units. So she's showing potentially this is the way that you can break up these units. So I'm going to have some wall partitions, some framing, some drywall, some patch, some paint, all of this stuff. You know, that's why I'm saying it's about $7,500 to do it, because you might have to take some walls down, bring some walls in, all that stuff. Then you're going to have some doors. Obviously, you're going to have some new doors that are going to be installed for the partitions you make and maybe access to the units. It does not have central AC. So the 2 new units that you're going to be renting out, you're going to have to provide some window AC for the tenants, or you could have the tenants do it, but I'm putting a cost in there. And most importantly, okay, we're going to go over this line item, which is contingency. All right, so contingency. What does contingency mean? And again, I'll step over here. Hopefully you can still see me. Right here, the construction cost, what you would like to do is actually get 3 estimates at least. In some scenarios, I've done more. Get at least 3 estimates from the contractor. You want a general contractor to give you an estimate on some of this stuff. You want to get a plumber to give you an estimate on, hey, can I use this plumbing here to do it? Typically, a general contractor will have all of those contacts, so you don't want to play general contractor unless you absolutely have to. For George is a general contractor, so he knows exactly what plumber he's going to call, what electrician he's going to call, how to contact FPL. You know, the electrician will take care of that, all of that stuff. You know, he's a little bit more experienced, but again, nevertheless, you want to use a general contractor, and then you might want to call some different subcontractors like a plumber, like an electrician, and just verify the numbers that are being given to you. So you want to get at least 3 of those. And again, that you want to do prior to closing, and you might want to have a statement in there that you as the buyer are going to gather quotes, and you require written permission from the seller to access certain parts of the thing. You're not going to open up any walls or damage anything while you're there. But again, just having that opportunity to have the different contractors access the property, because the last thing you want to do is sign a contract and then the seller says, well, you never told me you're going to have to be here 3-4 times with different people, so I'm not going to give you access. So you want to make sure that's in there and the seller is aware, okay? The next thing, which sometimes is very complex, especially here in South Florida, and I've seen this from experience, okay, is permitting, inspections, and the last one we'll talk about is time. So the permitting and inspections, remember, you have to coordinate with the zoning and city. So the city might have some requirements on what needs to be done to have this as a 4 unit. The building department, the building inspector might have some requirements saying, hey, this is no longer up to code. Now you have to meet today's code. So it's not just about putting some partitions. You might have to do some more security stuff. You know, you might have to have impact-proof windows for the 2 units you want to add. The doors, the electrical, the plumbing is no longer to code. You need to upgrade your plumbing. So all of that stuff is very, very important. And then the final thing is time. You also need to understand that when you have the city involved, and you need to call the different inspectors. You have FPL involved, which is the Florida Power and Light Company, and they need to have the schedule. How much time is it going to take for you from the point that you close until the point where you actually complete the construction and now you're able to rent out the units? So you need to factor in that time. Okay. Number 5 we talked about, which is the market value. That was the previous thing. So just go and rewind a few minutes, and that's that. Okay. So now the contingency number, which I forgot to mention, this number is very important because what you're doing is that you're setting a budget for yourself to say, hey, I know there's going to be some things behind the wall. I know that the inspector might come and find some things, so I need to have some reserves. Yes, it might only cost me whatever all of this adds up to. 523 minus 450 is 73. So let's say this adds up to $53,000. You don't want to just have $53,000 because if things come up and you can't cover those expenses, then you're going to be stuck. So you want to have some contingency. Maybe that money you don't spend, but at least it's better to be safe than it is to be stuck with a real estate property that's just sitting there. You don't have the money to improve it. Now you got to find out what to do with it. Trust me, you don't want that for yourself, okay? So having a contingency is very important. So we're going to go ahead and factor that in, saying, okay, I'm going to factor in another $20,000 if I do need to do all that stuff again. This is all things that you can factor in, and then George uses his own contingency, his own contingency, so he might factor in only 10% because his expenses are going to be much lower than you as an individual who is not a licensed contractor, okay? All right. So now that we know that our number is $523,000 all in for this 4-unit, let's say the construction went beautifully, you got all of your inspections, everything is done correctly, you're ready to rent out the unit, you rent out all the units. This is where we're going in here, right? Unit 1, so you're converting this to now is going to be 3 2-bedroom, 1-bathroom, and 1 1-bedroom, 1-bathroom units. So the 2-bedroom, 1-bathroom, we are estimating based on the market analysis for what other units are renting in the area. The real estate broker sent me some comparables in the 1,300 range. Again, you want to be a little bit conservative, so I said, okay, 1,250. So all of the 2-bedroom, 1-bathrooms are 1,250, and Unit 4, which is a 1-bedroom, 1-bathroom, is 1,100. So now we get into the fun stuff, the analysis, right? Now that you know all of this stuff, okay, and again, I probably have to make other videos going a little bit deeper on some of more of this stuff and showing you actual contractors' quotes and what things to consider, all that stuff, okay? Now let's look at that. Remember, we analyze in 3 separate columns, and the reason I'm doing that is because if you're just starting off, you might be in this column where you're owner-occupied and you're using some debt with an FHA mortgage. If you are an investor and you like to use leverage, which is bank financing or other sort of financing, you're probably in this category where you're getting some money from the bank, so you're looking at these numbers. And if you have a ton load of cash and you have no idea what to do with it, and you are just looking for cash investments, or you hate bank leverage and you hate taking loans, you might be in this category. So we look at all 3 categories here, okay? So let's get into it. The income, all of these numbers combined times 12 months gives you $58,200, okay, on a cash investment. The taxes, insurance, water and sewer, landscaping, repairs, once you add all of those numbers, let me go back. Another thing, the taxes. Previous to this, the current property taxes on the 2-unit is actually $5,400. The taxes on the 4-unit that is comparable, that sold in the same subdivision just a few months ago, was actually right around $7,900. So I have to up, instead of the $5,300, which is being disclosed right now, I have to up a higher amount for the taxes. And again, this is just an estimate, because at the moment that you rezone or you redevelop a unit, the actual city might actually say, well, this is much more, improved building, so the value on it is much higher, so we're going to tax you at the same rate. But because the value is much higher, now it's, the taxes might be $8,800. So you could get an estimate from the city based on what you're doing and at least have that number in here. But I'm saying, okay, it's going to be comparable to this one, so it's $7,900. Insurance $4,000, water and sewer $1,600, some landscaping is $1,200, and some repairs is $1,200 for the year. And again, I kept all of this the same. So again, in a cash investment, our expenses is $15,900, which gives us a net operating income of $43,300. Okay, so for the year, when you calculate cap rate, you're taking $523,000 cash. Now remember, if this contingency number, if we don't spend all of that $20,000, it's actually going to be a little bit lower. But let's say you do, which gives you a cap rate of 8.09%. So remember, I previously told you that George is currently looking for properties between 6 and 7% cap rate, and he's looking to bring them up to an 8% cap rate. So this, meets his criteria if all of this previous stuff goes well. Okay, so in the leveraged investment, okay, George is actually in this category as well. So he looks at both cap rate and cash on cash, which is I'm going to explain next. So all of the income remains the same, all of the expenses remain the same, but there is one more expense that I'm actually adding on here, which is financing. So based on an offer price of $523,000, my conventional 20% down payment is going to be $104,600. Okay, the principal and interest on a monthly basis is $1,997.51, and when you multiply that times 12, you get $23,970.07. So when you subtract your total income, which is $58,200, minus your expenses, including finances, you have an NOI of $18,329.93. Now, I know some of you more seasoned guys might be saying, well, you're not including vacancy in there, you're not including management, you're not including any of that stuff. Again, in this scenario where George is going to be managing the property himself, he is not looking for any management fees or anything like that. But yes, typically you would add those numbers in there. Same thing with vacancy. Even if your tenants have been there for 5 years, you still want to factor in some vacancy when you are doing your analysis, okay? Because that will actually put your investor's hat on, and then when you start to analyze bigger deals, 20 units, 40 units, 50 units, 100 units, 400 units, they are going to have some vacancy. So you want to always make sure, remember, vacancy, 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 make sure you build it up here, and you don't always assume that it's going to be 100% occupied, okay? So cash on cash in this scenario, remember, now George is getting an NOI, net operating income, of $18,329.93. His down payment was $104,600. So that actually puts his cash on cash return at 17.52%. And again, remember, we have our little analysis spreadsheet, which you could go and download, and then all you got to do is update some of these numbers, and it'll actually pull out what your payments are going to be, what your NOI, what your cap rate, what your cash on cash return, depending on this scenario, etc., all that stuff. So make sure you go and grab that. You don't have to enter an email, you don't have to register, none of that annoying stuff. Click on the link, brings you to the sheet, download, that's it, have it, whatever. Thank me, whatever. If you make billions of dollars using it, just buy me a nice Chipotle dinner, or let's go to Hereford's or Smith & Wollensky's or whatever on the beach. I'll be happy to do that for you at no additional cost. So owner-occupied scenario, right? So let's go into it. Now, this one I'm saying, okay, as the owner-occupied, you are going to occupy the two-bedroom, one-bathroom unit, so you're not getting this $1,250. So you're only getting two bedrooms that are rented at $1,250 plus the one bedroom at $1,100. Multiply that times 12, you get $43,200. So here where it's fully rented out, it's $58,200. Here it's $43,200. So that is $15,000 less that you're not getting based on that income. The expenses stay the same, all that good stuff. The financing, remember, we're using a FHA loan. Now in this scenario, it is going to be a different type of loan. It's going to be a 203K loan, which I'll do towards the end of the video, and I'll explain what that is. So we'll go ahead and do 3.5% down, $18,305. The payment on the principal, interest, and the private mortgage insurance is $2,619. In this scenario, after all that stuff, the NOI is obviously still negative, which means out of pocket, you're going in $344.78. But again, if you were already paying $1,250, that is actually the difference between those two numbers is your personal cash flow. You went in from having to pay rent at $1,250 to now owning an asset, and your out-of-pocket expenses got reduced. So you created an additional cash flow of almost $900, which means that you can use Velocity Banking and do all of that stuff with additional cash flow to pay off your debt much, much quicker. And again, if you don't know what Velocity Banking is, go ahead, you could YouTube the Finance Geek, Denzel Rodriguez, or you could go down below, click the name on his link, click the link by his name, and that will take you to his YouTube channel where you can learn a lot more about Velocity Banking and another sort of financing. Okay, before I uncover the future potential upside, let us talk about FHA 203K. And again, unfortunately, this is just training. Some people are not trained on this stuff, but all of FHA loans are actually written in a code, which the code is called 203 in, I don't know what the actual code reference is. I'm not sure if it's by the SEC or where it is, but I know it's 203. Chapter 203 talks about first-time homebuyer association loans. Now, a typical FHA loan where you don't have any improvements is called a 203B. 203B like boy. So again, where you have no improvements, where you're just buying FHA, single family, or up to 4 units, you are technically buying a 203B loan. And you can verify this with your mortgage loan originator, okay? Now, when you are using any sort of monies towards improvements or construction in the property, the bank will actually do a different type of loan, which is called 203K. So this is where that FHA 203K comes from. Remember, because you're putting in the offer at $450 and you need about $73,000 with the contingency in order to actually, rehab this property and convert it into a 4-unit, that is where you're going to be using a different type of loan. Now, in this scenario where you're going from 2 units to 4 units and actually changing the occupancy, there might be additional requirements, but again, your mortgage professional can answer that better than I can. But again, I just want you to be aware of these rehab loans. So if you are ever looking at opportunities and it's maybe a foreclosed property or it's condemned, condemned is a little bit different, but let's say it has some deferred maintenance and you'd like to put in a new windows, new roof, and a new AC system, you might want to look at an option with your real estate professional of saying, hey, let's look at a 203K option where you do that. The other thing is George has experience working with 203K jobs. So that being said, if you want to make sure that you get the right type of contractor, make sure when you're interviewing them, you ask them, have you ever worked on 203K loans before? Because contractors, typically they work for money. So when they need to understand that typically in a 203K loan situation, they get some money up front. Then the work has to be completed. They need to submit paperwork to the bank. They need to get somebody to go out there and inspect the work that has been done by the bank. And then once all the signatures are in place, the bank will release another part of that money to the contractor, and they'll have multiple inspection. And then at the very end, once they have the closed building permit, they'll actually do a final disbursement to the contractor. And again, the owner and the contractor always have to be signing paperwork, sending it to the bank, all that good stuff. So they need to understand the process. So trust me, you don't want to pull any contractor just off the street and say, hey, I got a project for you. Because if they don't know how this works, you're going to be stuck with the paperwork process and explaining why you can't pay their $15,000 invoice when they need the money in order to continue doing what they're doing. So that's very important. Now, depending on how you're watching this, in my personal opinion, for myself, if I was buying this as an investment, buying it at the 525 with the 2-unit doesn't really work with my investment criteria, but this is up for you. Your investment criteria, if you're looking for value add opportunities like George, these numbers look a lot better, right? We're going from a 5.31% cap rate all the way to an 8.09, and also our leveraged cash on cash return, we went from 3.62% all the way to 17.52%. So again, this might start to make some difference for you. But right here, the huge potential future upside for this is this point right here. This property is actually zoned in a 1 to 9 unit multifamily, which means that there are or might be some future redevelopment opportunities and the land value is there. So if in the future, okay, you were able to actually demolish this property, build the full 9 units, what is the potential value of those 9 units? When you have the rental income on 9 units, you know, what does that look like? Because George is a contractor, this might actually be attractive for him because he has the possibility of in the future or maybe even immediately say, hey, you know, I'm not going to go to the zoning board for just 4 units. I want approval for 9 units. And I'm going to go ahead and get that approval for 9 units. I'm going to go ahead and demolish this building and do a full build out, you know, of the 9 units and see how those numbers look like, right? But step 1 is even to see if it's possible to convert it. And number 2 is I'm not sure how much land is there. So is it even possible to make 9 units on this parcel with all the city requirements? Do you need variances? So all of that stuff, that is the potential future upside. So I know we've covered a ton of stuff on this video, and I know you might have been lost as I was talking fast, as I get excited on some things, and I want to show you my excitement here and actually show you what this can do for you. The biggest thing, again, if you're just getting started, for a lot of our Kingdom citizens and other individuals that are looking for these type of loans, you know, if you're just getting started with this stuff, it's the potential cash flow that you're going to be having. If you're already looking for some leveraged investment and you have that 20% down, maybe this cash on cash number is looking pretty good if you're able to take on all the risk like George here. And then again, if you are an investor and you have your cash and you have some experience doing value add, maybe this 8.09 cap rate is looking good for you as well. So with all that being said, hope you enjoyed this video. Please let me know what other information I can bring for you and answer any questions. If you comment below, I'll be sure to respond. Also, go ahead and check out in the description the links to the analyzer where you could download it or use it in Google Sheets, and also the link to Denzel's channel where you can learn more about velocity banking. So with all that, have an awesome day, and I'll see you on the next video.